Hi everyone, my name is Tom Vidian, and welcome to my Week 3 presentation for our Intro to Python class. And this week, I wanted to show you a simple game that I built in Python using Code Sculptor. The game is called Hangman, and I imagine that most of us are familiar with the simple game. If not, that's okay too. Simply put, this is a guessing game, a word guessing game, and the object of the game is to guess a secret word before your chances run out. And by building this game, I was able to put into practice a lot of concept and constructs that we've learned in class, such as timers, string processing, canvas and drawing, control elements such as text boxes and input fields, local and global variables, event-driven programming, and much more. Instead of talking on and on about the game, let me just fire it up and let's play a couple of rounds and see how the game operates, and then we can look at the code. So here I have the game's interface open. In the control area, we have a text box where the user can type in their guess. I also put in a new game button that you can press at any time to start a new game. Over on the canvas area, at the top here, I have a simple banner. And below here in green, I see that I'm being asked to solve a 6-letter word. And below that, I see a status area here, and thus far I have not made any incorrect guesses. In this game, at least in my implementation anyway, any number of correct guesses you make, that doesn't count against your total number of guesses. However, if you make an incorrect guess, obviously that will count against you. So as you see here, if you guess 6 times incorrectly, you will lose the game. And in the middle area here, you have a post. For every incorrect guess, you will see part of a hanging man, which is how the game gets its name. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, first I'm going to guess the letter A. I see that was an incorrect guess. So let's try E. Oh, I have one E. Let's try I. Oh great, I have an I. How about an O? Uh-oh. Alright, I think I know what this word is. And so I'm going to guess an L for filter. Congratulations, you won. Alright, and the game has reset on me, so I could start another game immediately. Okay, let's look at my code and see how my game functions. First of all, we have a couple of import statements here that imports the modules that we need for this game. Next, I'm declaring an array here. I have an array of words, and these are the secret words that are used in this word guessing game. Number of misses. This variable keeps track of how many incorrect guesses that a user has made in a particular game. This variable here, the guess, corresponds to the particular item in this array that is selected by random for a particular game. Valid characters, you see that I have the letters A through C here. See, I started this game off as a console game, much like the guess the number game that we did last week. And then I started porting that code over to use the canvas. And I haven't fully ported everything over yet. And I am doing some validation that you see when you run this game. You'll see this in the console, but it doesn't reflect on the canvas. So this is an artifact of that. So whenever a user guesses a particular letter, I check to make sure that they have entered a character that is in this listing here. I also check to make sure that they only put in one character at a time. I also check to make sure that a letter that they put in that is not the same letter that they used before. but some of that validation features, I didn't get a chance to move that over into the canvas area. But you will see that being operational if you look at the console window. User guesses. This keeps track of the guesses that a user has already made. This variable here is responsible for this mask that you see here. I have a lot more global variables being declared here. Here you'll see different parts of the Hangman listed as variables, and I'm setting all of them to black, and you could probably guess what I'm doing, the trickery that is going on here. You'll soon realize that I already have the Hangman drawn here on the canvas, but I'm initializing the color to black, and then I'm changing the colors one piece at a time as the user makes incorrect guesses. Next, I have my init function, which basically initializes a new game. And here I reset all my various variables so the user could start over. This is where the randint function is used to pick a random word out of the array, the words array that I showed earlier. And then I'm calling a print mask routine here, which is a helper function that I have. I have a for loop construct that basically goes through every letter in the secret word that is currently being utilized, through every letter, and if a particular letter was already guessed by the user, then I display that actual letter here. Otherwise, I simply put in a dash or an underscore here. Alright, next I have another helper function here. This one is called user has one. Basically goes through all the letters in the secret word, and if a particular letter in the secret word was not already guessed by the user, we could safely assume that the user has not won yet, because they still have letters in the secret word that is yet to be guessed. And that another helper function here. This helper function is responsible for drawing parts of the Hangman, and as you could see, it is not actually doing the drawing but changing the color of those parts that are already drawn so they are displayed to the user. This is the event handler that is triggered when a user puts in a particular letter and presses the enter key. And after the user puts in a particular character, I clear out the text box so the user doesn't have to manually clear that out when they make the next guess. And here I convert the particular character that was entered into lowercase and go through that letter and do the validation that I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to skip over the validation portions, and here I check to see if the particular letter that was guessed is actually a letter in the secret word, and if so, I call my print mask function, which will update the display here. But otherwise, I'm calling the print mask function again, which doesn't change the display on the canvas, but it does change the display on the console. I also increase update the count, the number of misses that the user has made, and then I call the draw Hangman function, which is responsible for displaying parts of the Hangman as is necessary. If the user hit the maximum number of misses, and I do a second check here, user has won. This is done so that the last time they come through, the last guess that they have, since we already incremented the variable, and if they won in that last chance, that will be reflected here. So I do both checks, and if the user actually lost, it is printed to the console, and then I'm starting a timer here, and we'll get to that timer shortly. On the other hand, if the user has 1, we start another timer, and we'll also look at the event handler for that timer shortly. Here's the draw handler, and the various elements that we see here on the canvas are being defined here, or being drawn here rather. Various calls to the draw line functions, and also draw circles for the various lines and circles that we saw on the screen. Alright, this is the timer handler that I just talked about briefly earlier. It is simply alternating between black and white. That is why you saw that the text was blinking. It is basically every time the handler runs, it is alternating between black and white. And the same thing is being done when a user loses. And I'm also keeping track of how many times this blinking is going on. And after that timer goes to 0, that counter goes to 0, then I stop that timer. And then I call the initialize function to start a new game. And here at the bottom, this is where I'm creating the frame. This is where I'm creating the various control elements, our text box, our 2 timers, and the new game button. And we're calling our draw handler there, and we're starting our frame, also initializing the game.